Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the man they flirt with. The girls don't think it right.
Oh, that is poppycock.
It isn't. It is a great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors that one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent.
My dear fellow, Wendell is my first cousin, and before I allow him to marry you, you will have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily, what on earth do you mean? What do you mean, Algie, by Cecily? I don't know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Well, I found this parasol, Miss Ernestine. You left it at on the gazebo the last time you dined here.
Do you mean to say you have had my parcel all this time? I wish to goodness you had let me know. I have been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would all come. I happen to be than more than I should more than usually hard up.
There is no good offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
I think this is rather mean of you, Ernestine, I must say. However, I look at the inscription inside. I find that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it is mine. You have seen me with it 100 times, and you have no right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to read a lady's parcel.
Oh, it is absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I am quite aware of the fact, and I do not propose to discuss modern culture. It isn't the sort of thing one should talk of in private. I simply want my parcel back.
Yes. But this isn't your parasol. This parasol is a present for someone of the name Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt.
Yes, charming old lady she is too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me, Archie.
But why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. That is that is a matter that surely an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt should be exactly like your aunt. That is absurd. For heaven's sake, just give me back my parasol.
Yes, but why aunt call you her aunt? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Aunt Jacqueline. There is no objection. I admit to an aunt being a small aunt, but why an aunt, no matter what her size, should call her own niece her aunt? I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jacqueline at all. It is Ernestine.
It isn't Ernestine, it is Jacqueline.
You have always told me it was Ernestine. I have introduced you to one as Ernestine. You answer to the name Ernestine. You look as if your name was Ernestine. You are the most earnest looking person I ever saw. It's on your cards. Here's one of them. Miss Ernestine Worthing, B for the Albany. I'll keep this as proof that your name is Ernestine if you ever attempt to deny it to me or to Wendell or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernestine in town, and Jacqueline in the country, and that parasol was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear auntie. Come, lass, you had much better have the thing out at once.
My dear Algie, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It is very vulgar to talk like a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces a false impression.
Well, that is exactly what dentists always do. Now go on, tell me the whole thing. I mentioned that I have always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret bunburyist, and I'm quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by a Bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to inform me why are you Ernestine in town and Jacqueline in the country?
Well, produce my parcel first.
Here it is. Now, produce your explanation and pray make it comparable. Make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there's nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it is perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little girl, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her aunt from motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of his admirable governess, Mr. Prism.
Where in that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly that the place is not in Shropshire.
I suspected that, my dear fellow. I have bunburyed all over Shropshire on two separate occasions. Now go on. Why are you Ernestine in town and Jacqueline in the country?
My dear Algie, I do not know whether you will be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It is one's duty to do so. And as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce very much to either one's health or one's happiness. In order to get up to town, I have always pretended to have a younger sibling and get into the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algie, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either. And modern literature a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't be at all a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not on your forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. You should leave that to people who haven't been at a university. They do it so well in the daily papers. What you really are is a bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you are a bunburyist. You are one of the most advanced bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger sister called Ernestine in order that you may be able to come up to town as often as you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury in order that I may be able to go down into the country whenever I choose. Bunbury is very perfectly invaluable if it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health. For instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Willis tonight, for I have been really engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know you are absolutely careless about sending out invitations. It is very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people so much as not receiving invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. To begin with, I dine there on Monday, and once a week I is quite enough to dine with one's own relation. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I am always treated as a member of the family and sent down with either no woman at all or two. In the third place, I know perfectly well whom she will place me next to. Tonight, she will place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. That is not very pleasant. Indeed, it is not even decent. And that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It ends simply washing one's clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to tell you about the rules.
I am not a barbarist at all. If Wendell accepts me, I am going to kill my sister. Indeed, I think I will kill her in any case. It is rather a bore. So, I am going to get rid of Ernestine, and I strongly advise you to do the same with Mr. With your very friend who has their absent name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which seems to be extremely problematic, you will be very glad to know Bunbury. A woman who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
That is nonsense. If I married a charming man like Wendell, and he's the only man I ever saw in my life that I would marry, I certainly will not want to know Bunbury.
Then your husband will. You don't seem to realize that in a married life, 3 is a company and 2 is none.
That, my dear young friend, is the theory that the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and that the happy English home has proved in half the time.
For heaven's sake, don't try to be cynical. It is perfectly easy to be cynical.
My dear fellow, it isn't easy to be anything nowadays. There's such a lot of beastly competition about. Ah, that must be on Augusta only. On Augusta, only relatives or creditors evering in that Wagnerian man. Now, if I get her out of the way for 10 minutes so that you can have an opportunity of proposing to Wendell, may I dine with you tonight at Willis?
I suppose so if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It is so shallow of them.
I was told you were coming to the church, Dekana. I've been waiting there for an hour and 3/4.
Prism! Come here, Prism! Prism! 28 years ago, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104, Upper Grosvenor Square, London, in charge of a pram containing a baby girl. You never returned. A few weeks later, after a police investigation, the pram was discovered at midnight in a remote part of the city. It contained the manuscript of a very bad three-volume novel. But the baby wasn't there. Prism, where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I'm very ashamed to say that I don't know. I wish I did. These are the facts. On the morning of that day, a day I will remember forever, I prepared as usual to take the baby out in the pram. I had with me a large old handbag in which I had intended to place the manuscript of three-volume novel that I had written. In a moment of forgetfulness, for which I can never forgive myself, I placed the manuscript in the pram and the baby in the handbag.
But where did you put the handbag?
Don't ask me, Miss Worthing.
Mr. Prism, this is very crucial to me. I have to know where you placed the handbag which contained the baby.
I left it in the cloakroom of one of the larger railway stations in London.
Which railway station?
Victoria.
I have to go to my bedroom for a moment. Wendell, wait for me here.
If you're not taking too long, I'll wait for you all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect, dear child. You have to know that strange coincidences aren't supposed to happen in families with a high position in society like ours. They're not appropriate.
Auntie Jacqueline sounds very agitated.
I wish he would stop.
The suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
Is this the handbag? Mr. Prism? Please examine it carefully before you talk. The happiness of more than one person depends on your answer.
It does seem to be mine. Yes, there's the damage which happened in an accident on the bus, and there's also the stain caused by a drink which exploded at Leamington. And here, near the lock, are my initials. I had forgotten that I had them placed there. The bag is definitely mine. I'm glad to have it returned to me so unexpectedly. It has been inconvenient not to have it all these years.
Mr. Prism, you've had more returned to you than the handbag. The baby whom you placed in it was me.
You?
Yes, father.
Miss Worthing, I am unmarried.
Unmarried. That is a serious problem. But who has the right to talk badly about someone who has suffered? Why should there be a law for men and another for women? Oh, father, I forgive you.
Uh, Miss Worthing, you are wrong. There is the lady who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, would you kindly inform me who I am?
I'm afraid that the news may make you unpleasant. You're the daughter of my poor dear sister, Mrs. Moncrieff, and therefore Algernon's elder sister.
Algie's elder sister. Then I have a brother after all. I knew I had a brother. I always say I had a brother. Cecily, how could you ever doubt that I had a brother? Wendell, my unfortunate brother. Algie, dear, you have to treat me with more respect in the future. You have never behaved to me like a younger brother should.
Well, not until today, dear sister. I have to admit that I did my best, though.
My own. What? What is your name? Now that you are not Jacqueline Worthing.
Oh my, I forgot about my name. I suppose that you won't change your mind about your favorite name.
I will never change it.
Then, the question must be cleared up at once. Auntie Augusta, had I been baptized?
Your loving parents had done everything for you, including baptisms.
Then I was baptized. That is settled. Now, what name was I given? Let me know the worst.
You were the eldest daughter, so you were given your father's name.
Yes, but what was my father's name?
I cannot recall what the general's name was, but I have no doubt he had one.
Algie, can't you remember what our father's name was?
Oh, dear sister, we never spoke to each other. He died before I was even a year old.
Surely his name would appear in the army list during that period, am I right, Aunt Augusta?
The general was a man of peace, except in his domestic life, so there is no doubt that his name would appear in the army list.
The army lists of the last 40 years are here. I should have read them all. And Generals Malam, Maxbom, Mackley. What terrible names they have. Markby, Mixby, Mobs, Moncrieff, Lieutenant, 1840, Captain Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel General 1869. Names Ernest John. I always told you, Wendell. My name was Ernest, didn't I? Well, it is Ernest after all. I mean, it naturally is Ernest.
Yes, I do recall that the general called you Ernest. I knew I had a reason for disliking that name.
Ernest, my own Ernest. I thought from the first that you could have no other name.
Wendell, it is an awful thing for a man to find out suddenly that she has been speaking nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
I can, because I feel that you are going to change.
Ah, my own darling.
Cecily, at
Wen-
last.
Wendell, at last.
My niece, you seem to be displaying signs of a lack of seriousness.
On the contrary, Auntie Augusta, I have now come to realize for the first time in my life the importance of being earnest.